How did Israel, with no oil, no water, and no natural wealth, become one of the most powerful nations on earth? Picture a country the size of New Jersey. No oil beneath the ground, no great rivers, no vast farmland, surrounded on almost every side by hostile neighbors. And literally born into a war it didn't start. Most nations with those odds don't survive the first decade. Israel didn't just survive, it built one of the most sophisticated military forces on the planet. It became a global leader in technology, agriculture, medicine, and cybersecurity. Its per capita startup density rivals Silicon Valley. How? That is what this video is about. And I promise you, the answer is not what most people expect. Born into war. On May 14th, 1948, Israel declared independence. Within 24 hours, 5 Arab nations, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, launched a coordinated military invasion. Israel had no standing army, no air force to speak of, and a population of barely 600,000 people. Think about what that means. Most countries get years, sometimes decades, to build institutions, establish borders, train their military, and develop an economy. Israel had one day. That war, what Israelis call the War of Independence, set the tone for everything that followed. From that very first moment, this was a country that understood it could not afford to be weak. It could not afford to be slow. It could not afford to assume tomorrow was guaranteed. That understanding didn't just shape the military. It shaped the entire national mindset, and that mindset is the core reason Israel became what it is today. No oil, no water, no luck. Let's talk about the hand Israel was dealt, because it was genuinely terrible. The Gulf states sit atop some of the largest petroleum reserves on the planet. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, they had a geological lottery ticket handed to them. Israel had no such thing, no oil, no natural gas in meaningful early quantities, no mineral wealth that would attract foreign capital or build automatic revenue. Water? The entire country sits in a semi-arid to arid climate zone. The north gets some rain. The south, the Negev desert, gets almost none. There is no Nile, no Amazon, no great river system to draw from. Fresh water has always been scarce, contested, and critical. Land? The country is tiny. At its narrowest point, it is less than 15 kilometers wide. There is no strategic depth, no vast interior to retreat into. Every inch of territory matters in a way that simply isn't true for larger nations. So when you look at the early years of the state, you're looking at a country that had almost nothing to work with except the people inside it. And that scarcity, over time, became the engine. Improvisation and deception in the early wars. In the earliest wars, Israel didn't have the equipment to fight conventionally. It didn't have enough tanks, enough planes, enough ammunition. So it improvised. It deceived. It applied psychological pressure where it lacked physical force. One of the most remarkable examples. In the early days of the 1948 war, Israeli forces used crude but effective tactics to simulate a stronger air capability than they actually possessed. Small planes would fly in ways designed to create the impression of a larger, more threatening air fleet. The idea was to sow uncertainty in the enemy, to make commanders hesitate, second-guess, pull back, not because Israel had the firepower to force it, but because it manufactured the perception of strength it didn't yet have. This kind of thinking, using creativity, deception, and psychology to compensate for material shortcomings, ran through Israeli military doctrine from the very beginning. When you can't outgun the enemy, you outwit them. When you can't match resources, you dominate information. This is not a small insight. This is the foundation of everything that came after. The intelligence imperative. A small country cannot survive if it only reacts. It must know more than its enemies know. It must move faster. It must strike smarter. This realization gave birth to one of the most capable intelligence communities in the world, Mossad, Shin Bet. Military intelligence units that became legendary not just for what they accomplished, but for how they thought. And no figure embodies that tradition more completely than Eli Cohen. Cohen was an Egyptian-born Israeli spy who in the early 1960s embedded himself so deeply inside Syrian society that he became a close personal advisor to senior Syrian military officials. He attended parties at the homes of generals. He was given tours of Syrian military installations, including fortifications on the Golan Heights. He transmitted critical intelligence back to Israel for years. When Israel captured the Golan Heights in the 1967 Six-Day War, some of the most important tactical advantages came directly from what Eli Cohen had sent back. He had been captured and executed by Syria in 1965, but his intelligence work lived on in Israeli military planning. Cohen became a symbol not just of courage, but of a philosophy that a small nation with limited resources can overcome much larger adversaries if it is willing to invest in knowing things others don't. Intelligence became a national priority, not just a military tool. Turning water scarcity into a science. Back to the water problem, because the way Israel responded to it is one of the most important stories in modern engineering. In the 1950s and 60s, Israeli engineers developed drip irrigation. Instead of flooding fields or spraying water into the air where much of it evaporates, drip systems deliver water directly to the root of each plant, drop by drop, precisely measured, almost nothing wasted. This wasn't just a local fix, it was a revolution. Today, drip irrigation technology developed in Israel is used on millions of acres of farmland across the world, in dozens of countries, including places far wealthier than Israel ever was. But they didn't stop there. Israel built desalination plants that now supply the majority of the country's drinking water. It developed water recycling systems so advanced that Israel recycles more than 85% of its wastewater for agricultural use, the highest rate of any country on Earth. For comparison, the next closest country recycles less than a quarter of that. The scarcity problem didn't just get solved, it got turned into an export industry. Israeli water technology is now deployed in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and across the Middle East, including in countries that historically had hostile relationships with Israel. The innovation loop: defense, tech, medicine. Once that problem-solving culture was established, it didn't stay in agriculture, it spread. Israel's defense sector became a world leader. The Iron Dome missile defense system, drone technology, cyber warfare capabilities. The country poured resources into defending itself, and those investments produced technologies that eventually found commercial applications far beyond the battlefield. In cybersecurity, Israeli firms became some of the most trusted in the world, partly because they were stress-tested in actual conflicts rather than simulated environments. Companies like Check Point, founded in the 1990s, helped define the global firewall industry. In medical technology, the capsule camera, a swallowable pill-sized camera that lets doctors examine the digestive tract without invasive surgery, was invented by an Israeli company. Rewalk, the exoskeleton that helps paralyzed patients walk again, came out of Israel. The list is long. In mobility, Waze, the navigation app that Google acquired for over $1 billion, was built in Israel. Mobileye, the autonomous driving technology company, was founded in Jerusalem and acquired by Intel for over $15 billion. Isn't true for larger nations. None of this happened by accident. It happened because Israel kept building in critical sectors: defense, cybersecurity, medical tech, agriculture, and treated each one as a national priority rather than a private market experiment. The economic policy that made it stick. Innovation doesn't scale without capital. And here, smart economic policy played an essential role. In the 1990s, Israel launched the Yozma program, a government initiative that offered to match private venture capital investments with government funding, and then step back and let the private sector run the companies. It was designed specifically to make Israel attractive to foreign investors who might not otherwise take a chance on such a small, volatile market. It worked. Within a decade, Israel had one of the most active venture capital ecosystems outside the United States. Today, Israel has more companies listed on the NASDAQ than any country except the US and China. It has more startups per capita than any nation on Earth. The government didn't try to pick winners. It built conditions where winners could emerge and then got out of the way. The lessons. So what do we take from all of this? The story of Israel is not really about Israel. It is about what happens when a society is genuinely forced to think differently about its constraints. The first lesson: build strength in your most critical sectors. Water, defense, and technology weren't hobbies for Israel. They were existential concerns. When something is treated as truly vital, it attracts the best talent, the most funding, and the most serious thinking. The second lesson: turn crises into industries. Every major problem Israel faced, water scarcity, security threats, geographical limitations, became the seed of a global export. The problem was the product. Scarcity forced innovation. Threat forced efficiency. The third lesson: invest in talent above everything else. Israel has no oil, but it has one of the highest rates of engineers and scientists per capita in the world. Its mandatory military service, controversial as it is, produces a generation of young people trained in high-pressure, technology-intensive environments before they ever enter the civilian workforce. Units like Unit 8200, Israel's Signals Intelligence Corps, are considered one of the greatest talent pipelines for the tech industry on Earth.